Well, we're here.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Wish I was with Mr. Hansen by his lake, but not. So
How are you, Gary?
Hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome.
I can't hear you. Speak up.
You wanna
It's,
give your screen sharing a test before any guests log on?
Sure.
Should work.
I got to move it around a little bit though. It's blocking my view.
well, we see your view. Was I with you?
You see me, but you don't see my screen, right?
Right, yeah.
Were we with you? Was I with you on that view? Your background?
Yes, you were. That was the first year we were up there. Mr. Glick was in there.
Where's that?
Boundary Waters.
Oh, yeah. My family goes to Leech Lake most years. Do you know where that is?
On the way to the Boundary Waters, sort of.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh,
Oh, there we go.
You
There
see
we
the
are.
screen?
Yep.
So I should be able to just move it when you need me to, Mr. Morgan. So I'll try and stay on track with you.
well, I'm not the star of this show. I got a call from the. I'm sorry, I don't know who you are, Miss.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Jessica Kearney. I'm the event coordinator with the city of Marion.
Maybe we've met before. I apologize, but anyway, I got a call from the current owner of Foster's, who was exceptionally concerned that I would be mistaken for somebody having something to do now with Foster's, and that if I said something on this at this event and a viewer did it and blew themselves up, that they'd sue Foster's. So, Jessica, I love doing this, as my friend Mr. Hansen would say. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for inviting me to help. But we got to leave the formally business off. It just
Okay.
Mark Morgan. If that doesn't have a draw, well, I don't know what to say. Sorry.
That's no problem. Yeah, I'll give a quick introduction to both the series and you guys. So do you prefer I say just Mark Morgan is joining us today?
Sure. Yeah.
Should I say like home enthusiast?
Good. My first sentence is I've been a homeowner and pretty aggressive do-it-yourselfer for 44 years. But that's too much. But experienced home maintenance person, experienced in the issue of the day, which is certainly true.
That sounds good. And Gary, I'm sorry. I want to make sure I get your title right. I don't have it right in front of me.
I'm the city building official.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. City
And canoeist.
and canoeist.
You can see.
That's great.
Last I forgot, Gary, looking at your background, that you can be almost anywhere. I was supposed to read to a bunch of second graders on last Thursday, I don't know, earlier this week. I guess it was Tuesday, maybe. It was Tuesday, a couple of days ago. And I made other plans and I could have done it. I just would have had to done it from Muscatine, but I didn't. I forgot that I could click in on a Zoom call from 100 miles away, but we rescheduled.
Well, I see we've got a few people logging on. Are you guys ready if I give you a quick little introduction?
What else can we do?
Ready to get.
Ready as
We are.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'm Jessica Kearney. I'm the event coordinator with the city of Marion. And this event series is called Geek Out About. And we cover different topics every month. The common theme being we geek out about them with experts about whatever topic it is. So I'm just going to list a couple upcoming events we have. So they're on this, the Geek Out about events are on the second Friday of the month at noon. So you can hopefully join on your lunch hour. In April, I'm really excited. We have Geek Out about planting trees. So I know a lot of people are interested in that after the trade show. So we'll talk about that. In May, we have Geek Out about grilling with Grillworks here in Marion. The owners of that business are going to talk. And they're going to go a little deeper than just grilling. They're going to talk about like how to smoke cheese on your grill and how to do all kinds of fun stuff like that. So that'll be great. And then in June, we have Geek Out about computer safety. So just common things you should have in mind and some good tips from the city's IT department there. But today we are going to talk about home maintenance and things you might be able to do yourself, maybe what you need to call a professional for, and things just to keep in mind as a homeowner that you should be doing on a regular basis. So I've got Gary Hansen with me. He is the city building official for the city of Marion.
How's everybody?
And I also have Mark Morgan here with me. He is an experienced home maintenance expert. So these guys have a lot of knowledge between the two of them. So what I want to tell you is they're going to talk for a little bit. Put questions in the chat anytime, and we'll just keep it conversational. I might pause you guys, Gary and Mark, just if a question pops up and let you know what it is. And then we'll leave a little bit of time at the end as well. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Which one of us starts, Gary? Do I start?
You're starting, buddy.
Okay, excellent. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad you could come. This is a lot of fun, except that what Mr. Hansen and I talk about could be work compared to like grilling. I can see that being a little bit of a challenge. Anyway, when it comes to home maintenance or almost anything else, one of the really great things about maybe doing it is keeping score. So you see over my back shoulder a poster size list, and you can't see it very well, but trust me, it's there. And that's my list of things. And I also carry around with me a small size list, this size for day to day. The big list has things that I kind of the macro, and then the small list is what I'm going to do today, and maybe even what it's going to take to actually do those jobs. So I like to keep track, and in fact, sometimes it's really great when you're doing your maintenance around the house, the weather's turning, stuff like that. Sometimes, like yesterday, I noticed that my garage door was squeaking a little bit, so I put on my list, lubricate garage door. I lubricated it, and then I crushed it right off. So sometimes it's fun just to kind of do that. So it's good. I've got a fairly long list I'm going to share. One thing I want to point out, though, the garden hose. Now, there's not a lot of maintenance to a garden hose, but there's probably nothing more heartbreaking for a homeowner to go out in the first beautiful day of spring and then see his garden hose has been hooked up all winter and say, oh, great, I don't have to rehook it up, until he turns it on or she turns it on and goes to use it. And it doesn't seem to be all that much pressure coming out the end because all the water's running into the basement because you left it on, it froze, and consequently the plumbing inside, which is designed to keep it from freezing, but because the hose on, hose froze, backed up the water, and it froze inside. So hope it's not too late for some of you to notice this, but if it's not, if you go outside, you do find your hose on the siltcock outside, when you turn it on, make sure you kind of go inside to make sure you don't have a plumbing catastrophe. And if you do, probably a good time to maybe reach out and touch a professional at that point, because it could be kind of a hard thing to fix, maybe in a difficult place to get to and things like that. So anyway, I think that what Mr. Hansen has maybe first on the list of honeydew projects, that probably wasn't what I really meant to say, home maintenance projects that you might do seasonally, maybe change your furnace filter. So, Mr. Hansen, is that filter picture someplace handy? Oh yeah, a big picture of actually my basement. So in the lower right-hand corner of the filters, Mr. Hansen can maybe cursor that, is a really great filter, but you can see it's very dark colored. In full disclosure, not from my house, but from somebody very close to me who didn't change their filter for about a year, and then called in kind of a panic, wondering why their furnace was making these ghastly noises. And I said, well, maybe you should. And he did. The filter above it, the thicker filter with lots of pleats on it, is what it's supposed to look like when you put it in there. 2 years later is probably a lot to expect from it. The other two filters are more common. They're all the same size, actually, physical outside dimension. And you should probably be able to change the filter in your furnace without taking any panels off. I hope that's true of you if you're watching this. Because realistically speaking, unless you have a lot of experience, and maybe more than what YouTube can get you, modern furnaces, air conditioners really don't have that many owner serviceable parts inside. So changing the filters to be something that you get to do, you should be able to do without tools, without taking things apart. I hope you can manage that, and that's a good seasonal thing to do. The blue filter, by the way, is a very inexpensive filter, available local home store, and actually that inexpensive filter is what the furnace you have, if you have a warm air furnace in your basement, that inexpensive, only moderately effective filter is what your furnace was tested with. So while you can upgrade, and boy, do you get lots of chances to upgrade when you go to the home center looking, don't buy a big stack of them, because filters are not all created equal, and some of them can get hard on your furnace. And once again, probably something you might, if you have troubles with it, you might check with your HVAC professional that you use for the more dramatic tune and cleans you probably get annually too. Just to the right of the clean filter is my humidifier, and right on top of it is the water panel. I do my humidifier service in the spring. That way it's ready to go when I turn it on in the fall. So about now, I'm gonna do that. And it, once again, no tools required. Realistically speaking, a rag to kind of wipe the stuff out of it, change the water panel. You can get that probably from your local HVAC professional, perhaps at a home center, and for certainly online if you want to buy one. Once again, don't mess with it too terribly much. You might find yourself knee deep in the big muddy, as it were, if you get too carried away with working on things maybe you don't recognize, understand. And on the right of that is my water heater. That's the white device. It's got the little black readout in the middle. Can't see it probably on your screen, but I have an instantaneous water heater, and there's really no user serviceable parts inside that. The install manual and the service manual is very thick, and it needs to have annual service, no doubt about it. Most importantly, probably the descaling, which requires parts, which requires taking things apart, reconnecting. Unless you're, well, really just, unless you know what I'm talking about, and really just don't do that. That needs to get done, but that's something your plumbing, heating, HVAC professional really needs to do on your behalf. And you need to do it because it's an expensive appliance. They work wonderfully. I love mine, but it needs to probably have information, needs to have some things done to it that you probably can't, as a homeowner, do without really knowing your stuff and probably getting some outside help. Mr. Hansen, could you show the tank type water heater? Oh, wait a minute. We'll go to the next slide first. The water softener. That's also in my basement. I got a picture there of the salt. Super easy to take care of. In my case, it's just a one-piece unit. The front lifts up and salt goes in. There's a scale inside that shows where your salt should be, and there's a readout on the top that you can reprogram to when it should tell you it needs salt again. It's got time on it, when it recycles itself and all that kind of thing. Marion water is the best water in the world. I love it. I've lived here for 56 years. It's like, wine from new skins or something like that. It was great stuff. But most of us can do our appliances and our fixtures and things like that can do a little bit of softening here in Marion. And so my softener works really great. Mr. Hansen's asking me to move along by changing the picture. Oh, the tank water heater. Sorry.
Let's pause just for 1 second. I wanted to ask if someone were to set a calendar reminder, for example, for how often to change the furnace filter. I think you said seasonally. So would it be, is it like 4 times a year you should change it, or how much?
The inexpensive two thin 1 inch thick filters, I would say that's a 4 time a year thing. I really would. They are not as effective as the really deep thick filters. They do a great job, but they do a really great job when they're kept on top of, kept clean. Because once they get dirty, they don't do much other than bad things for your heating and cooling system, for your warm air heating and cooling system. So when I said seasonally, that's what I meant, 4 times.
4 times? Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And when you
The other two, obviously, as you can tell by the one lower, it can't handle every 2 years. At my house, with it's just the two of us and no pets or kids around, I get a year out of my filter, and then I have to look at it kind of carefully to see dirt. My wife's a magnificent housekeeper, and so it doesn't get dirty fast, but I change it on principle annually just because I know it'll work better. So there's that. The tank type water heater, there are some owner serviceable things there. I'm going to go over them real quickly because you need to read up. You really need to read up. If you decide if you want to try to do some maintenance on your tank type water heater, you can, and you can do it without tools and have the hose handy, and you can do it without tools, but read the instructions, the manual that came with it. If you are unwilling or unable to do that, don't, because you'll end up causing yourself a mess or some heartburn or heartache that you just really don't need. And I want to make one thing. It has to do with draining the water heater. Mr. Hansen can put the cursor near the drain, I'm sure, on that water heater. And if you've never done this, if you have a 10-year-old water heater and you've never followed the owner's instructions on it, if you've never done that, don't start today, because that little drain valve on the bottom can get calcium in it. So once you open it, it may not shut. And at that point, you've kind of gotten out of your lane when it comes to things that a homeowner can do to put it back in service safely and neatly. So read the instructions. And like I said, if you've got a 10-year-old water heater, read the instructions on the one you have. And when you get the new one in not too long, then you can decide whether or not you want to do the annual service on your tank type water heater. Once again, no tools required, but something you should do. So, Mr. Hansen, you want to do since he has a picture of the air conditioner up, can the folks watching this can they see that picture too, Jessica and Mr. Hansen?
See which one?
The picture of the air conditioner?
Right here.
Yeah. Can people who are watching this online see that?
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's just partly covered by our faces. We can see about half of it.
Okay. Well, we'll catch that, and then I'll turn it over to my friend, Mr. Hansen, for a little bit of tutorial about smoke alarms, batteries, and ladders, perhaps. But the air conditioner that you see to the right of the screen is a pretty common one. Some of you may have exactly that air conditioner in your house. So if now is the time that you go out and install the hose on the silicock inside of your house, also might be a good time to wash that outdoor part of your air conditioner. Change the filter inside, which is what you can do inside, and outside, wash on that condensing unit. That outside unit, about all that really I would recommend a homeowner attempt. And even that can be a messy situation. I have some mulch around mine, so it doesn't get muddy when I wash it. But as you can see, the louvers, which are important to the way the air conditioner operates, doesn't make it easy to wash the coil that's behind it. So, guys, a person needs to turn off their power going out there. And if you don't know how to do that, skip it. Just have somebody come in and help you with that, because it's important that you do that. Then you have to wash the grass clippings and cotton and anything else that might have pulled up into those coils, which you can't see in that picture. So to see those coils, you have to kind of stand on your head-ish and look up in there. And if you're at this point going, I'm going to have a headache when I'm done doing this, don't. The air conditioner with a clean coil will run far cheaper, makes it way more efficient. And if it gets dirty enough, it won't work at all. it just won't work at all. And then you'll have a service call, and it'll be 200 degrees outside, and you have to wait your turn. So having your air conditioner serviced at the beginning of the year, either professionally or this little part of it, can save you a lot of heartache. But don't put yourself at risk by not knowing how to turn off the power. Don't put yourself at risk by trying to be upside down, washing the thing out. And then if you manage all that, however, then leave it shut off, leave the power off to it for a day, let it all dry off, because yeah, they sit out in the rain, but chances are if you take your garden hose with a sprayer end on it, you're going to put water where it's not normally sprayed into by rain. And of course the derecho driven rain may be a different matter, but that doesn't happen every day. So be careful on the air conditioner. It's high voltage out there. Turn it off and decide for yourself before you decide whether you are certain you can do it. Make sure you look at it carefully and make sure that you really think you have what it takes to do that safely and accurately. So yeah, Mr. Hansen, you want to take the next thing on the list?
Sure. I'm going to skip ahead a couple slides here. I want to really right now is a great time to change smoke alarm and smoke detector batteries. I always do it this time of year because the time changes this weekend. I did mine yesterday or last night, actually. It's a great time to do it. When time changes in the fall, you can change your batteries again. A lot of times though, you have to be careful because if you need if you have a really tall ceiling like this one and the battery and the smoke alarm is clear up here, you're going to need to get a ladder to change that. A ladder that's this short is not going to be long enough or tall enough to get to that battery, because you do not want to stand on those top rungs. It says right in here, do not stand above this step. So you don't want to. You got to make sure that you have the right ladder for the right job. If you do have a taller step ladder, that's one thing, or you can put an extension ladder. But if you do use an extension ladder, you've got to be a short one, and then you want to protect your wall when you put something on there. You don't want to scuff up your wall, or you're going to be repainting along with changing the batteries. So first and foremost, be safe with the ladder. Another thing that you can change when you're doing your smoke alarms is changing the thermostat battery. These have to be changed as well. Probably not quite as big a deal as if you only change it once a year if it happens to die on you. But I always change mine the same time I change my smoke alarm batteries, because it's just a habit, and they never have the thing not work for me there. I'm going to go through real quick and show you how to change the batteries if you don't know. So this is the smoke alarm. They just twist off. You twist them, they'll give you a little bit of resistance, but as soon as it unlocks, it should just come right down with very little resistance. But even before that, you need to know what size battery you have. Now, most smoke alarms are going to use this 9-volt, or what they have listed here is a PP3, but it's a standard 9-volt battery. Mine, I have one that uses that, and the rest of them all use a AAA battery. And it takes quite a few AAAs in mine, because mine are interconnected through an RF, through a radio frequency. They are not hardwired. My house is old enough that I only have one hardwired smoke alarm. You might ask, what are you talking about hardwired? Well, in today's houses, when you're building a house, you put in smoke alarms, they have to have a wire that goes and interconnects them all. And what does that do? Well, that makes it so if one goes off, they all go off. So when you're taking your smoke alarm down, if it's got a wire hanging like this, you've got to disconnect that wire from the main detector. Sometimes you can go ahead and get them down far enough to change the batteries, but I know on mine, I could probably do it, but it's just easier to unplug it and then change the battery and then plug it back in. So when you're changing the batteries, all they are is just a little compartment on the back side. Slide the compartment open, pull the battery out, put the new battery in just like it was. Now, on my AAA, one that has 3 AAA batteries, or I'm sorry, AA batteries, it tells me which one I'm supposed to put in first. And the reason it has a little lever in here, and it doesn't show it on here, but it's like right here. And so when I put my battery in there, it pushes that lever down to activate the smoke alarm. So that's something you want to pay attention to. Some of them might have that, some of them might not, but if it does, you want to make sure that you're doing it in the order. So the next slide here, this is the hardwired connection right here. So with that, it just plugs into this little slot here. So once you've changed your battery, you want to plug that thing back in. Once you've got that plugged in, then you're ready to put your battery or put your detector back up. And all that is putting it back in place, turning it the opposite way, and making sure it latches in place. You don't want it to fall out later, so you got to make sure it's in there secure. And then once you're done with that, you should test the smoke alarm itself. If you have hardwired ones, when you push the button on one, all the alarms will go off. If your house is older, you may only have battery operated ones, and then you'd have to test each one separately, which can be a challenge too. You might have to move your ladder around depending on how tall your ceilings are. Some people I know, and my inspectors all have them, they have sticks that they just push the button, and when I say sticks, it's made for that, but it's a device that they use to extend the stick out, and then they push the button so they don't have to climb up on a ladder all the time. It's only good for testing. It's not good for changing them. So I'm going to go back here a little bit, and this is one that I don't know. Mark, you want to talk about the cleaning gutters, or want me to continue on?
Well, I want to add one thing about the smoke alarms too. First of all, don't change the batteries while you're standing on top of the ladder. Just take it down, because it's safer to do it on the countertop than it is up on the ladder. And secondly, when you change the batteries or you buy the smoke alarm, probably right when you got it, because they're generally good, wouldn't you say, Gary, for about 10 years is about it.
The smoke alarm is good for 10 years. In fact, actually, now if you can go buy smoke alarms that have a battery in them, and it's a 10-year battery. So the battery is supposed to last for 10 years. Now, after 8, it starts beeping. You're going to want to throw the smoke alarm away, because you can't change the batteries in those. But they are out there, and it's a good product. It makes it so you don't have to change them every year. So, but you do want to do like Mr. Morgan said, and you want to put a date on it, because they are only good for 10 years. So, do they have
the combos, like our building department requires the combo smoke and carbon monoxide detectors in new permitted applications? Do they have those in the 10-year throwaways? Do you know?
I haven't noticed them in the carbons in the 10-year throwaways, but they do have carbon monoxide detectors. You can buy either buy the combo unit like that, or you can buy just the carbon monoxide detector that you can plug in. Even those have a battery backup. That's a good point. It's a good time to change the battery on the carbon monoxide detectors as well. So.
Yeah, Gary, do lots of newer houses, maybe this is what you asked, Mark, is it the combo in the newer houses, and then maybe if you're in an older house, you want to get a separate carbon monoxide detector?
Yeah, so the newer houses, the code requires a dual sensor, and that dual sensor can be carbon monoxide and smoke. It can be, there's a number of things that it can be, but the most common is the carbon monoxide and smoke. And the newer houses all require that. And actually, if you were to change it, that's what I would buy. Unless, of course, your house has no gas in it and it's just electric, that would be another point. But I would recommend buying the dual sensor carbon monoxide. That way you're protected in every room.
Got it. Okay, thanks. Oh, I wanted to ask one more thing before we move on to gutters. So continuing to think about this in terms of a calendar, like if someone's kind of planning out their calendar of maintenance. So that was a good point to change the batteries, at each daylight savings time in the spring and fall. When we talked about the air conditioner and the hot water heater, was that an annual thing we were talking about? Like check your air conditioner annually to see if it's dirty, and then what would you need to do to your hot water heater annually?
Well, I deal with my water heater in the fall, because the picture that you saw is in my basement. So my water heater, my furnace, and my humidifier are all basically within touch of each other. So I take care of that in the fall. And then the air conditioner I wash in the spring, because it's very close to where my faucet is, or my silcock is for my hose, and so I do that. But those, I believe, those are sufficient to be annual things. So if a person is going to have that done, to ask a pro to come and do it, that it certainly could be an annual thing, but it also is not uncommon for it to be a spring and fall, or winter and summer, that kind of thing. So there's really the important thing, I think, is to get it done. And so seasonal's not that hard, other than going out in the washing and air conditioner where there's snow built up all around it. Kind of tough. I wouldn't recommend that.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think I might be speaking for a lot of people though. When it comes to the hot water heater, I definitely don't do anything to it annually. So do you mean that, technically speaking, whether you can do it or need to hire someone, it should be drained?
If you have a instantaneous water heater like mine, you really need to have that descaling service done annually. They have very, very small water passages. They burn a lot of gas because they have to take water that Todd Stingerwalt and his crew bring into our house at 45 or 50 degrees. And as it goes by the flame, it's got to take it up to 105, 120, whatever it's got to be. It's got to get there, and it runs through really, really quickly. Our water, as wonderful as it is, has some particulate in it that needs to get flushed out, and that is not a do-it-yourselfer deal unless you're really, really, really aggressive and good and brave. And honestly, if you've never done it. The tank type water heater, what I said earlier, it's in instructions how to do it when it came with the water heater. And if you've got an older water heater, let it go, Indiana, because it could potentially give you some trouble getting the water shut back off. And you don't need that. Read the instructions, say, oh yeah, I'm gonna remember to do that next time. And then when you have to get your new water heater, write the date on it, you get it on the side of it, and then keep track. Water heater is your water heater. You can use magic marker on the side, say drained and cleaned, or drained out scale, or whatever, how you want to say it on the date. And you should do that annually. Make it last longer.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about gutter cleaning. Maybe you're like me, and with the ratio of all your trees are not up anymore. I had screens over the top of my gutter to keep the leaves out, so I didn't have to clean them as often. That's an expense that somebody could put on for you, but it's not required, obviously. But in the fall, when the trees start losing their leaves and they gather in your gutters, you need to be able to get those cleaned out there. So if you set an extension ladder up like this, you need to have it out far enough away from the bottom so that it doesn't fall backwards. I think this one, I'm not sure you can see it, but it's strapped right here on the gutter. Is that correct, Mr. Morgan?
That's right. And the instructions right on the ladder will say, to get the right tilt, put your toes against the bottom of the ladder and then reach out from your shoulders as far as you can and grab the rung closest to your shoulder height, and that will essentially give you pretty much your 75-degree angle for the ladder, for the ladder setup.
Right. So there's a number of ways of cleaning these out. I know a lot of people that will take a blower and like a leaf blower, and they'll blow them out. Some people will take a hose and wash them out. You can move your ladder and just take them out by hand, kind of clean them out that way. Where it drains down is where they're going to really gather. So that's where you're going to want to. And then if they do get down in your downspout, you may have to take downspout off to clean them out there too. But that's also something that, if you don't take care of that, the water runs out when it rains hard. The water runs over the gutter and comes down beside the house, which can cause wet basements if there's enough. It obviously depends on your grade and how much slope you have and all that. But there's always a chance that could happen. So just make sure that when you're cleaning your gutters, that you do that. Usually in the fall. You can do it in the spring too, if you have trees that don't drop their leaves till really late in the fall. So, but you want it done definitely by spring rain. So.
By when?
Spring rains, buddy.
Oh, spring break. I you said spring break. I'm going, what? Who
No.
said spring break?
Spring
I want to say say a couple more things about the ladder. You know, the picture of me, so the ladder that Mr. Hansen's got there, the step ladder, that's a 4-foot step ladder. Okay. I'm not quite 6 feet tall, but the theoretical would be, well, I have a 4-foot step ladder, and if I'm close to 6 feet tall, I can certainly reach 6 feet. So I have a 10-foot smoke alarm that's 10 feet off the ground. I can easily reach that. Well, the picture that Mr. Hansen showed was me standing safely on top of on a 4-foot step ladder. So only off the ground 2 feet. And the smoke alarm that you saw was 10 feet off the floor. And I was well short of being able to reach that. So the theoretical, could have I gotten up on top of that 4-foot step ladder and stretched out as far as I could to grab it? That's the theoretical. The actual is, I'd have fallen off and broken my leg. So knock that off. Don't do that. Another thing with the extension ladder, you can see that extension ladder is not purpose built for my garage, but it's tall enough that it's extended not just up to the gutter where you have to climb over the top and get out. Mr. Hansen and I have both taken many OSHA courses, I'm sure, over the course of our respective careers, and they're going to say that you need to have the ladder go up far enough that you can literally climb the ladder right up and step directly off the ladder with both hands still on the ladder to step onto the roof that you're going to exit off onto. And that ladder does great for that. Plus it's lightweight. It's rated for my weight. And so I like it a lot to use it for that. And I actually do use that for changing that smoke alarm battery that Mr. Hansen mentioned the other day, and putting little dish towels over the ends while I'm standing on top of that ladder works well for me. And I use a leaf blower on this particular gutter, front and back, and I have the largest maple tree, I believe, in Lynn County, that lives just on a kind of kitty corner from where that ladder is. So it's a twice a year thing for me. So I was up already this year. You can see the snow in the background. I was already up cleaning that once. And don't do it by hand. Unless you have exceptionally heavy duty rubber gloves on, because two things can happen. Number one, there can be sharp stuff on the inside that gutter, and there is. It's raw sheet metal, aluminum, but they can do that. And interestingly, some birds carry I think it's a parasite that when they land on the roof, every bird that ever lands, when they take off, they defecate, and this parasite is in some birds. I had an 8th grade teacher, just passed away, lived through it, but he painted in the summer, and he got this brain fungus from that, and he missed a whole year of school. So don't do it by hand. Use a leaf blower or some really heavy gloves, or like Mr. Hansen described, have somebody put some screens over or whatever. Cleaning gutters is dangerous. It can be really dangerous business. You need to do it for all the reasons Mr. Hansen said, but it's pretty. It can be. You need to really take your time. You really need to be heads up doing that. So there you go. Is that enough about gutters?
I think that's enough. You want to talk about that one?
Oh, sure. Another water thing. Okay. An aerator on your faucet. You may not really even know what that thing is, but it's a little gadget on the end of the faucet that has different looks. This one has is on actually the outside of the faucet, so it's very easy to see. A lot of your lavatories, your bathroom faucets have the outer aerator. Most kitchen faucets don't, so they're actually thread up inside. Because I do this, hesitate to say religiously, but I believe in cleaning the aerators, especially because I want the water to keep coming out the way it's supposed to. Not hard for me to get off. Obviously, I can actually take that aerator in my sink and turn it off by hand. And when I put it back on by hand, it comes off, it goes back on with that and doesn't leak. Aerator's purpose in life is to reduce the flow of water, but by mixing air with it, aerator, it leaves a good strong stream. With the aerator off, a lot of water comes out of that faucet at once, And it's pretty wasteful because you can't really use that much water that quickly. But aerators like one shown there usually have also a little orifice in it that will perhaps let it only run a gallon per minute or maybe 2 gallons per minute. But you don't really notice it because you get enough. When it mixes with the air, it comes through there, it streams out nice and solid and straight, but it's enough. Now, our magnificent Marion water, and I'm not teasing about that. I've lived with Marion nearly 60 years, and it is good stuff. It's safe, it's clean, it's pure, it's wonderful. Got some particulate in it, and that sometimes lands in the aerator. It's not hard to figure out when that happens, when about half your water streams are maybe spraying different directions, or only half of it's running, or maybe it's spraying out into your, onto your chest when you turn it on. Your aerator is dirty. There's probably nothing really wrong with your faucet, but your aerator is dirty. And it's super easy to clean. You take it off either by hand. This doesn't respond well to a water pump pliers. It will grind the devil out of the chrome on that. So you have to maybe have a special wrench or wrap some rags around it if you have to use that. But realistically speaking, most of them get off by hand. I take that off by hand, and there's 4 or 5 little, not 4 or 5, probably 2 or 3 parts inside. First you look at it and go, oh my gosh, there's some stuff in there. I'm glad I took this out when I did. By the way, what'll help you get this off, if you just take a Dixie cup with vinegar in it and either hang it or prop it up underneath the where the water comes out of your sink, the vinegar will go to work on any kind of calcium or anything that may have your aerator kind of stuck on. Give it some time, give it plenty of time, maybe a day, and try it again the next day. But it usually will dissolve it enough so you can get it out. And then it's really just a matter of cleaning it out. You take it on a paper towel. Don't lose any of the parts. You have a screen in there, and then you have maybe a little mixing thing. Looks like a washer with a hole in the middle and a bunch around the edges. You may actually have a solid washer. That's the limiter. That's how much water will go through it. And then almost certainly there's some sort of a washer that will, like you have in your garden hose, female-ended garden hose, that goes up against the faucet to keep it from leaking around the outside edge. And you don't have to let it dry. You don't have to do anything. Don't lose the parts. Try to take a picture of them before you take them out so you know how they go back in. That kind of thing. It's a very easy thing to do. And this doesn't necessarily have to be an annual thing, although like the tank type water heater I talked about earlier about draining that down and following the instructions on how to do that. If you do it annually, it's a lot easier. If you wait till your faucet's 20 years old, chances are pretty good that you're not going to be able to get that aerator off or out, and you're just going to have to live with the way it is. You might be able to clean it a little bit, but realistically speaking, the water particulate that concentrates itself on the back side of that aerator, the part that's closest to the curve of the faucet there that you see, generally too big to dissolve in a Dixie cup of vinegar. So, that might be an adventurous thing for a homeowner to undertake with their annual maintenance. I hesitate to say it out loud, but maybe use the faucet you don't love the most, just in case you do some damage or maybe do some cosmetic damage. You may not damage the faucet, but practice does make perfect. And so if you want to make your faucets last longer and work better, an annual or at least reasonable time clean of the aerator is a plus. Recommend it.
Jessica, how are we doing on time? Do we have questions, or should we continue on with some stuff?
You can keep going. No questions yet, but yeah, if anyone has them, feel free to put them in the chat.
Okay. This next one is not really a maintenance item. It could be. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about how to change a door lock. This is one of those things that when you buy a house, you move into a new house, or maybe your door lock is just getting bad, or you want to change the color. This may help you do that. So I'm going to kind of go through the steps of how to change a door lock. A lot of times when you're buying a new house, you always trust your realtor. You hope that the people ahead of you that own the house have turned in all the keys. But in a lot of cases, you want to just be on the safe side, and you can take the lock off and have it rekeyed, have a locksmith come and do it. You can actually do it yourself. You can buy kits for it. I wouldn't recommend that. They're kind of a pain. You really kind of need to know what you're doing. You might end up having to buy a new lock, and you may not want to really do that.
Or a whole new door.
But yeah, so we'll just go through a couple slides here on how to change a door lock. So the first thing you probably need is a Phillips screwdriver. That one, you've got this one here, you can see it has holes on the here that you can unscrew it. You just loosen the screws and the knob should pull apart. Now there are some that this plate here has no holes in it. And if that's the case, it probably has a little slot in here. You just take a little straight screwdriver in there and pop that cover off, and then your screws will be underneath it. And actually the knob itself will come off as well. Most of them aren't that way unless they're a commercial lock. So most of them you're going to see, you're going to have a screw like this. So once you've taken it apart, this is basically what you have. You have two knobs. You have your latch inside here, and the mechanism for unlocking is inside the lock. So what you need to do is you need to measure or find the same brand. You need to find something that fits the door. So you need to know what this measurement is in here, and then from the edge of the door to the center, that's going to be your key. Most of them are two sizes. They're either 2 3/8 or 2 3/4. But you need to know, and some of them are adjustable, so you can sometimes buy a latch and it's universal, so it'll fit. So once you went to the store and got your latch, your new lock set, well, first of all, you got to remove these. This is your plate here that it has the locking mechanism. That's got to come off too. That's got to come out, and there's going to be 2 screws in here to pop that out. So once you've got your new lock, they have a template in there, and that template is for drilling a hole in it for a new door. Now, hopefully, you bought one that's going to work. You can lay this template on here. This part here would go on the flat side of the door, and then this would be where your knob goes. And you turn it, you bend it through here, as it's bent through here. You bend that and lay it on there, and if the holes line up, then you're golden. If it's not, you got to find out whether it has another. See how this one's got a dotted line? That's the free. This lock was evidently an adjustable lock. It was either 2 3/8 or 2 3/4, and then you had to fold the fold for the right lock. So once you've laid that on there and you've confirmed that lock will fit in there, then you can reinstall it. If it doesn't look like it's going to fit, then you need to go back to the store. Maybe take your old one with you so you can make sure that somebody there can help you find one that's going to fit. So once you've got it, this is the latch, and the adjustable part will be right inside here. And like I said, it's either going to be 2 3/8 from here to the center, or 2 3/4 from here to the center. Now, I won't guarantee that there aren't locks that are different than that, but that is the 2 standard sizes. So once you put this latch back in there, you just put your screws right back in place. Hopefully the screws won't be loose. If the screws are loose, you may have to make some adjustments, may have to try and fill the hole and re-drill it. Maybe you have to get bigger screws. There's a number of things that you can try and do to make that fit tight. But if the door is in good shape and you haven't stripped the screws when you put it in, it should just come right out, and the new one should just go right back in. Once you've done that, all you got to do is slide your door lock back in from each side. Now, I'll tell you from experience, most of the locks have to be in the lock position when you put them together. It's not always true, but it seems like it works better. And some of them do say that right in the directions it's required to have it locked when it goes back into place. Once you put that thing back in place, all you got to do then is just put your screws back in it, test it, and make sure when you turn it, the latch goes back. Put your lock the inside, put your key in the outside, make sure it unlocks properly. And once you've done all that, you're done. I mean, that's all there is to it. It sounds pretty easy. It is. It's not hard. It's time consuming. And the big thing is making sure you get the right lock. So I just go through that real quick, and hopefully if you have any locks you ever got to change, that'll help you out.
Can I add one thing?
All right,
Can I add one thing?
sure.
Yeah, on changing the lock, I know Mr. Hansen and I are both very experienced do-yourselfers and maintenance people. You can put that latch in backwards. It won't know the difference. You take those two
Sure.
screws off the edge of the door and you put it in. Oh, I've done this a million times. I don't have to pay attention. I have to read the instruction. I have to look at it carefully. Take it out, put it in, done. You do, it won't shut. The door won't shut. That latch, of course, has a curve to it, and the curve is made to pass over the strike plate and then latch into the opening in the strike plate. Well, if you put it upside down, basically backwards, it won't shut. The doors will clunk, and then you'll be chagrined because even though you knew what you were doing and done it a million times before, you're like, I can't believe I did that. You know, I was watching Dancing with the Stars or something like that at the same time and failed to pay attention. Now, did you have anything? How are we doing, Jessica? We good?
We're doing good. We had one question that I think is a good one, just about dryer vents. And we know you have to clean them, but like how often and how well exactly do you have to clean them?
That question for me or for Mr. Hansen?
Well, it can be for either one of us. I'll tell you from a building code standpoint, it's very important that that thing is clean all the time. Now that doesn't mean take it off every week or every month. I clean mine at home once a year, and to do it, you could do it twice a year. I don't know that there's an actual time. A lot of it depends on your dryer. If your dryer is older, sometimes they put out more lint. The filter isn't quite as good, and that's really the big thing, is making sure that you get your filter cleaned in your dryer. You should clean that every time to keep that lint from getting into your dryer vent. I'll be honest with you, I clean mine every time, and when I take the vent out, I have very little lint in my vent, but I do clean it out. And as far as how clean, it's not like I guess I've never washed it out or anything like that. I make sure that all the major clumps are out of there. Mr. Morgan, do you have any insight on that? You ever see any of those
Oh, sure. Yeah, because Ms. Morgan and I have been married for over 40 years. I've had the opportunity to buy dryers more than once. And yeah, like Mr. Hansen said, you need to make sure that they will last longer and work better with a clean
it's a lint trap.
duct. But I've also learned, or kind of probably by experience, that the gadget, whatever the gadget is outside, that lets the vent, the lint, the warm air, whatever, all the stuff from the dryer, the vent where it's out, can really impact it, because some of those really collect a lot of crud on their own. So consequently, when that cap or louvers or whatever you got outside starts to collect, then it slows the airflow down, and so it settles out more and more and more in the ductwork before it gets to the cap. So not to really go too crazy, but maybe I found a cap I really love. It's more of a commercial thing, and I've used it some other places. But the real benefit for Cheryl and me at our house is it comes off. It has some little springs that tuck into the ductwork on the side of the house, and to clean it, it just pops it off. I don't have to take screws out. I don't have to mess around with that. It's made of stainless steel, so I can literally, and it's got a stainless steel flapper in it too, so I can literally take it out, use the hose outside if it's winter or summer, take it inside, in the slop sink in the winter and clean that, and that does a huge amount of good for keeping that. And then I have a dryer duct cleaning brush that hooks up to my electric drill, and actually you attach your chop back to it. It's got a little gadget, run it through there, so I can all the way down and clean my duct. It's not that much fun. I wouldn't want to do it for somebody else, but it was a gadget. I never got a chance to say this earlier on in our conversation, where the list that Mr. Hansen had and the list that I had, all the things I've talked about so far, basically I've been able to do without tools. But because like I said, we're not only pretty into our own home maintenance spa, we're also do-it-yourselfers. So I kind of have a rule in my do-it-yourself projects that I've been doing for the last almost 50 years. And it's like, okay, when I undertake a new project, I got to have a new tool. So while the maintenance is not that much fun, at some point along the line, I saw this dryer vent duct cleaning gadget that had rods on it. It was going to work great for me, and I use it. It works. It really does work well. And when it comes to clean, pretty tough to beat. It's clean because it fits right down there and has a rotating brush and sucking out at the same time. But the outside part, that's usually pretty easy for most people to access. Even if the inside part of their ductwork is inaccessible, they can access it from outside. And I would recommend that if they can find one that's super easy to pull out. You can also, the gadget that I have, you can run it from the outside, which of course I do because it's easier to put the hose through the outside with the big shop vac attachment attached to it. So as it's brushing, it's also sucking that dust back, and it works really, really great.
Nice. I'll ask a random question since we have a couple more minutes here. After the derecho, I saw a lot of posts on Facebook that said something along the lines of, even if your house looks okay, you better go up in your attic and see if there's mildew or anything. I didn't quite know what to make of those posts, and I didn't know if either of you could kind of speak to that, and if someone hasn't done it yet, if that's truly something that needs to be done.
Yeah, it doesn't, when we had the derecho and you have 140-mile-an-hour winds, your attic is ventilated. So it lets air come in, and then it pushes the hot air out, or so what happened, and we've seen it a number of times, is they have vents underneath the soffits. The soffit would be the overhang of your house. They have those vents there. The wind comes up there and will actually move the insulation. So we've seen that a few times in our inspections of houses where they have blown the insulation away from the outside walls, and all of a sudden they have, instead of having 12, 14 inches insulation next to the outside wall, now all of a sudden they have 2 inches of insulation, and they're going to have a cold spot on the outside. So yeah, that is an issue. And if you have insurance, you'd want to turn that into insurance and get somebody to come and take care of it. You can go back up in there and kind of move the insulation around, but it doesn't get blown back in there like it should. It really needs to have you can go rent an insulation machine. You can blow it yourself if you're handy. You want to do that. But if it was done during derecho, I turn it in on my insurance and get the insurance company to help pay for that, because there is an expense, and it will hurt the energy efficiency of your house. So.
Yeah, and if we had all day, we could talk about more stuff that it would do. As far as, like Mr. Hansen said, the minimal insulation near the outside wall. Now all of a sudden you've got an uncovered joist, and it's cold outside and warm inside. Now you get condensation that you can't see until it ghosts over and ruins your paint job, on and on and on. So, that's not very many people want to get up in their attic to do any kind of maintenance, much less just look. But like Mr. Hansen said, and I saw after the derecho, some places where there were literally piles 3 feet deep of blown in insulation in the attic, and then none over here. A desert over here and a mountain over there. And that's obviously not the way it's supposed to be. I did want to add a couple of things. One thing, got some more things on my list, but we don't have all day. You should check stuff on your own. Long about now, maybe not now, but certainly next month, when it's in the 50s or 60s or maybe low 70s even, turn your air conditioner on. Do the maintenance stuff, change your filter, change the batteries in your thermostat and all that kind of stuff, but then turn it on. Because while it's true that it's just sat there all winter long and it shouldn't be anything wrong with it, it was working fine when you shut it off back in September, you never really know for sure, and it doesn't take much to turn it on. And then if it makes a noise that you had never heard before, or doesn't work, or whatever, you can call in a pro. You can get on a list or in the queue, or however you want to call it, and that they can get there sooner rather than later. Because I can promise you that, as you all know, whether it's a body shop after 14 inches of ice, or whatever, the professionals that take care of HVAC stuff, it gets hot out and they'll get busy, and nobody wants to be unhappy. So try it out, turn it on. Don't presume that's going to be okay. And that's true of all this maintenance stuff. We don't presume it's going to fix itself, because it won't. Don't take care of it. Make sure. And then in the fall, let's try it again too in September, rather than that first sub-zero day in December. Oh, I'll turn the furnace on now, even if you are punishing your kids for, using too much hot water or whatever. Sooner or later, you don't want to cut off your nose to spite your face and say, I'm not turning that furnace on until Thanksgiving, and then have it just go, yeah, who, me, what? No. So, try that out. Do that. I would recommend doing that. And a couple last things I had were sharpening the blade on your lawnmower, changing the paddles on your snow blower. Takes tools, and if you're not a tool guy like me, kind of assess that before you undertake that kind of a project, because most places that you have to fix a snowblower, you have to get the snowblower there. I can still lift my snowblower, but I wouldn't want to lift anything heavier than that. And when you take it to the shop after you've torn it half apart, well, there's lots of stories about that kind of thing.
I'll ask one. If anyone has any last questions, this is your last warning to get them in. I'll ask a super random one I just thought of. I know lots of homes in Marion are new construction. Lots of them have gas fireplaces. And I'm sure maintenance for a regular wood burning fireplace is kind of its own story, but is there any maintenance needed regularly for a gas fireplace, or do they just run on their own?
I'll let you answer that one, Mr. Morgan, because I don't know, because I don't have a gas fireplace.
Well, me either. Me either. But the short answer to your question is absolutely, Jessica. They're actually more akin to that standard tank type water heater. Their controls are very, very similar. They have a pilot light, mostly. Some don't. Some are automatic. That needs to have clean. Most all of us don't have pilots in our furnaces anymore, but a lot of times do, and that pilot light can get dirty and fail. They a lot of times have a safety device called a thermocouple that after a number of years can give out. Interestingly, though, the thing that's common among gas fireplaces is they have a wall switch on the wall that turns the gas on, and they may have a switch right next to it that turns on the fan. But if you turn the wall switch on and the pilot light's lit, you can see it in there, but nothing happens. Interestingly, the wall switch they use, because electricians who install them don't really have a choice, is made for 110 volt current. Well, 110 volt current is pretty sturdy. It will make through a less than perfect connection within the switch. Well, the voltage that operates your gas fireplace control, that is, it turns the burner on, is less than a volt. And it's generated by a little device that's inside the fireplace, which is really great because that fireplace will make heat even when there's no power. So from a standpoint of having kind of a backup heat source in cold weather, that's really great. But that less than 1 volt that has to leave the fireplace and go all the way over their side of the room through a little bitty wire, not a very big wire even, but a little bitty wire, go through that switch and come all the way back. Well, that switch is made for 110 volts, especially if it's got some age on it. May not have the contacts inside, got a little corrosion, maybe a little, maybe some crud in there from just life. All of a sudden now it's not really making. And a lot of times a test would be to stand there and rack it back and forth, kind of scrape it against itself. And then all of a sudden, if it starts to work, the switch is giving you its 5-minute warning or whatever you want to call it. Because it might not do it the next time. But that's the best way for a homeowner really to check that particular thing. And then it's a matter of, do I do anything more? And I'm kind of saying that really a gas fireplace also is kind of no owner serviceable parts inside, because to get to most of it, you have to at least take off the glass to clean burners, clean the logs off, to clean the glass itself. You take the glass off. And it's heavy and it's expensive. So if you're going to undertake that, you really want to be heads up. Others like other brands, there are some brands that make really nice and expensive fireplaces, are beautiful, absolutely stunningly beautiful, but they're the size of a coffin, and they're impossible unless you really know what you're doing to get to where the stuff is that operates that. So if you've got one of these fireplaces in your home that's 6 feet wide and 2 feet tall and 3 feet deep, read the instructions before you have a go at that, because they can be a little bit difficult to get to. Short question, long answer. That's the way I am though. So
Well, thanks guys for providing this info. That was great.
Not a problem.
it's our pleasure. That's our pleasure.
It was nice. We're just out of time, so I'll go ahead and end it. But thanks. That was
All right.
good.
Good. Nice to meet you, Jessica. Gary, we'll see you again soon.
All right.
Good. Bye.
Bye.